So you've hopefully watched part one of this two-part video. If not, check it out in the link below in the description. It's important to follow those steps first. Now that you've secured your financing, decided on the vehicle, and located at least 3 examples at 3 different dealers, you are now ready for the fun part. This is where you start the process of hammering down the salesman and the dealership. This is called the tire kicking and test driving phase. Hopefully you've set a schedule in advance to see the car with 3 days or so to go at the end of the month. Arrive at a few minutes early to your appointment. You're going to use this extra time to look over the vehicle on the lot, assuming that it's outside. And you're going to look for the window sticker and the VIN and make sure that they match the one that you saw online. It's not uncommon for a dealer to present a stand-in with slightly less options as a bait and switch car. We'll get to that window sticker more later, but take a picture of it for now on your phone. Check the car for scratches, dings, misaligned panels, excessive gaps, or even paint quality issues. Even on a new car, these things are common, and you're going to use that later to your advantage when you're negotiating. Now it's time to go inside and introduce yourself to the salesman. Now remember, as I said in the previous video, if at any time before the negotiation phase he asks you how you intend to pay, do not say cash and do not say you're paying with your bank. Tell him you're still thinking about it and change the subject. From this point forward, your goal is to waste as much of his time as possible while controlling the narrative. When he asks you for a drink, you take him up on the offer. If he says the coffee machine is right over there, you tell him, can you please go get it for me? I don't know how to work those machines. Make him go up and get it for you. Sit at his desk. When he comes back with your coffee, compliment him on his family picture. Talk him up a bit. You need to get him comfortable because he's going to be blindsided by you later. After you've hobnobbed for a few minutes and some time has gone by, tell him to grab the keys and show you the car. You're going to want to bring your drink with you and sip it because it's a psychological step that will become clearer later. Once outside with the car, or it might be in the showroom floor right next to him, which is even better, take your time looking the car over again. Ask him questions. Ask him things you know that he won't know the answer to. If you remember in the first video, I said you need to know this car in and out. Well, now you're going to use that to your advantage. Don't make him feel stupid, but tell him you'd like him to get those answers for you while you continue looking over the vehicle. You may already know the answers to all of these questions, and hopefully you do, but let him do the work for you. Let him go research those answers and burn his time. And try not to let him multitask either. If he seems to be distracted with a phone call or another client that might be coming in later, don't let him off the hook. Politely remind him that you set aside your day to come see this car, and he needs to focus on you now. While he goes to look up the answers to those questions, play with the interior. Open the doors, make sure there are no defects. If you do find some, make a note of them and point them out as soon as he gets back. You're not discussing knocking off any money just yet, but have him fully aware and visually see those defects and that it's not up to snuff for a brand new car. And get him to agree with you on the imperfections. Don't let him off the hook. Now that you've eaten up about 30 minutes of his time, ask him for a test drive. If they got to pull the car out of the showroom floor for a test drive, don't apologize. Let them do it. It's their job. Now, he's going to want your driver's license to make a copy. Make sure before you go on the test drive that he gives it back, not after, before. There have been some rare cases where dealers have kept the driver's license hostage until they come to a deal with you. You don't want to give them the upper hand. Get that license back first. If anything, you're going to be the one holding him hostage until he breaks, not the other way around. Oh, and before you go on the test drive, ask him to go inside and top up your coffee. Now it's time for the test drive. Likely, he will ride with you. In fact, insist on it. You're going to wear him down. You want him there along for the ride. Once on the road, take the long route. Tell him you need to feel it on the highway. Miss a couple of turnarounds on the way back. While doing this, really get a genuine feel of the car. Check for vibrations or noises, and let him know of anything and point it out if there's something that's out of the ordinary. Get him to hear or confirm the rattles that you hear as well. See, later he's going to offer to fix those problems for free, especially being that it's a new car, but you're going to use those as a negotiation tactic. Now, after a nice long drive, it's time to finally head back to the dealership. When you stop the car, talk about it with him for a few minutes while sitting in park. Let him know the positive things about the vehicle, but also the negatives. You're not going to focus on every little negative thing, but you need to let him know that you like the car, but it's not the ideal example. In reality, none of them will be. Maybe the color you can live with, but it was not your first choice. The seats are okay, but you've sat in better. You were preferring a black interior, and this one's gray. Keep it at a 50-50 positive and negative comments there. You're not going to try to make it seem like you don't want the car, but you also don't want to tip him that you love it. At this point, he still thinks he can make a deal with you if he can get things to line up. So now turn off the car, pop the hood, get out with him and go take a look at the engine. Just stare at it. You're not really looking for anything in there, but you're not really concerned about that at this point. But what you're really doing is making him stand while you're talking. Ask him how sales have been lately. Ask him why the car has been sitting on the lot for 90 days. Remember that research phase? Let him know you're thinking about a couple others that you'd like to show him when you go back inside. And once again, if it's brought up, he will try again, but don't tell him that you are paying cash or financing with your bank. You just change the subject, tell him you'll discuss it with him inside. So now it's time to go back inside. You've probably used up about an hour to an hour and a half of his time. But before doing anything else, you guessed it, get him to go top up that coffee. He's working for you now. So now this is where you sit down and you tell him that you're thinking of using their financing. Finally, this is what he's wanted to hear. But you're not sure how much you're going to put down right now. But even if you have the cash or a trade, don't bring those up. You'll never mention cash, but you'll talk about your potential trade a little later. If he asks about your trade, tell him you're not really sure if you're going to, but that it's a possibility. And before going any further, have him print out the whole vehicle price breakdown. This is important. This is where you need to make sure that it compares to the sticker. Check that MSRP sticker that you printed out or even have on your phone from earlier, and compare it to that printout sheet that he just made, and make sure the numbers line up. Look for an ADM or adjusted dealer markup. This could be on the sign, on the side of the Monroney sticker, or it could just be, you know, buried in the list of the options that they have in the printout that they gave you. You're going to want to look for anything they tried to slip in there. The MSRP should match the final number on that sticker. So what to look for? Look for what I call true coat add-ons. This would include garbage fees and fake add-ons like any paint protection that's not actual PPF, nano wax, rust inhibitors, 3M door edge strips, nitrogen in the tires. All of these things are not actual value added add-ons. They're all usually snake oil or cheap $20 products that the dealer tries to charge hundreds and even thousands for. They likely didn't even put them on or put them on correctly anyways. Get these add-on markups removed immediately. You point them out to him right away and you tell him and stand your ground that if they insist on charging you a dime for these bogus add-ons that you're walking away. He may tell you they can't remove them. You tell him they can. When I negotiated on a Rogue Platinum back in 21, the dealer had about $2,400 in add-ons, realistically only worth 200 bucks. But not only did I get them to remove them from the price, I still got to keep all the cool stuff like the all-weather mats and you know, even the 3M door strip and some other stuff. So I got them to remove it, didn't charge me a dime for them, and I still got an additional $5K off the MSRP on that vehicle. And I did it for 2 other friends as well. So stick to your guns. If the dealer doesn't completely remove them, you'll tell them that that they either have to do it or you won't finance with them. You know, tell them and remind him that you don't want to finance any of these add-ons because, you know, the bank doesn't look at this as part of the sticker of the vehicle. You're not getting anything back. So stick to your grounds. Now, the only exception to some of these add-ons would be an actual value-added add-on. It's rare, but sometimes there are some, like a 3-piece truck bed cover. Maybe it's something you were going to buy anyways for the pickup. And as long as it's not listed insanely higher than what you would normally pay, you may be able to let that slide. Now, after you've hammered him out of the ADMs, remind him of all the faults you discovered together and whip out the comparables at this time that you printed out from before. And hammer it in that this car has been sitting for X number of days. You tell him this has been on your lot for 93 days and you know it. And if you know it, others know about it. Show him that there are 2 cheaper ones advertised just a few miles away. But you'd like to do the deal with his vehicle if possible. Inform him you're aware it's the end of the month and you want to do this deal today. Get him to apply those Superman discounts that from their advertising earlier. You want to remind him that it's kind of misleading that they had these ads and you're not sure the legality of this, but they should honor those prices. And make it clear that you're not in the mood for games, but that you're willing to make some concessions, but you really need them to stick by their word. If they advertise the car for a certain price, you want it for that price. And if he still insists, tell him to go take it to the sales manager. Give him your offer. Tell him, please go present this to your sales manager. When you're trying to get money knocked off, you want to be reasonable about what you're asking. If your first offer is ridiculously lowballed, like 25% off, they may feel that they're just wasting their time with you. A general rule is outside of employee pricing or manufacturer rebates, you can't expect to get much more than 5% off the asking price. But asking somewhere around 8 to 10% off is a good starting point. Even though you may or may not get it, it's at least not insulting or unreasonable on a vehicle that has been sitting and needs to be moved. If the online price is your target, tell him he needs to stick to it and honor it, or else you're just going to walk. Remind him that they're going to have to pay another $500 or $600 or $700 in floor plan in a few days if he doesn't sell this. And he'll probably have to discount it anyways. Tell him financing with them will be on the table if they make this deal now. Now you start pushing that, working with his financing. Now you need to remember that invoice, which is the price that the dealership pays, and MSRP are not that far apart. If it's a hot item that generally doesn't sell for under MSRP, the best you can probably expect to get maybe $500 off the sticker and maybe a free oil change or something thrown in. But now that they know you are financing with them and it's the end of the month, they may actually sell you this vehicle at or below invoicing just to get those end of the month and end of the quarter bonuses. So work at it with him. Don't be discouraged when he comes back initially from the sales manager and there's little to no change. Keep working at it. Make him go back. You've got all of his time to burn. And you know what? Your coffee's getting cold. Time to make him go and top that off for you. Have him walk and go contemplate just how much time he's wasted with you so far while he makes that walk to the espresso machine. When he comes back, tell him you're there to do the deal, but if he can't come to your terms, you're ready to walk out of there without a car, but you want to walk out of there with his car. The ball is now in his court. He just has to play by your rules, which now opens the door to discuss financing in more detail. This is where you let him know that if they agree to the terms of the pricing, you've now finally decided that you will use their financing department to purchase the vehicle. Now, most dealerships have multiple banks that they use. The only two that you will be using is either the manufacturer's bank like GMAC, Ford Credit, Chrysler Capital, or it will be their floor plan bank or flooring line bank. This could be Ally or a number of other banks. So the way it works is if the deal involves a manufacturer discount or incentive that you located during the research phase in the previous video, then you want to use that bank for this transaction and insist on it. If they're trying to use another bank, you tell them, I've got to use the manufacturer's bank to do this deal. The discounts are going to require it. After getting any ADM or True Coat remove, the pricing with the bank should be very clear at this point. But if you're not getting any special manufacturer discounts, let the salesman know that they can use the bank of their choice for the financing. With one exception, do not under any circumstances use US Bank. That's a topic for another video, but trust me on this one. And you want to let the salesman know that it helps them out and works to their advantage if you use their bank for financing. See, when you use their bank of choice, which is typically the bank that supplies their floor plan, it pays to keep the vehicles on their lot, and that bank usually gives them a bonus for writing up a certain number of loans with them. If the dealer meets, let's say, X amount of paper with the bank by the end of the month and the end of the quarter, they may get a large bonus for meeting those targets with the floor plan bank. And they may get a discount on the interest that they pay next quarter. So not only is it to your advantage that you waited until the end of the month or the quarter for the manufacturer bonuses, it gives you even more leverage if you are helping them meet their floor plan bank targets. In some cases, the dealer is willing to sell the vehicle at little to no profit or even at a loss just to meet those target goals, because that is where they make the most in the bigger picture and grand scheme of things. And I have purchased vehicles where they sold it to me at a loss and even showed me on their computer screen that they lost money on it, but it's that bonus that gets it back for them. So use that to your advantage. Tell the salesman to go and speak once again to the sales manager and even the finance guy to see what they can do for you, knowing this information now, and that you're going to use their bank. And that is why you are going to still finance this vehicle, whether you're paying cash or trading in or using your bank. They're going to give it to you at probably a ridiculously high interest rate. It's going to rip you off, seemingly, but you don't care. What you are not going to ever tell them, and they hope that you don't do this, is that you're going to refinance that loan with your credit union at a much better rate right away after bringing this car home, or you're going to pay it off in cash as soon as you get the title. So hopefully the dealer is taking the bait at this point, and in most cases they will. If they think they can make it up on the back end of the financing, they'll let it go through and approve the deal. The salesman should come back, shake your hand, and have you sign a piece of paper that agrees to the final price of the vehicle. But don't let them bring back only a monthly payment schedule, whatever you do. If he comes back with a piece of paper that only shows the monthly payments, you tell him to go and print out an official offer with the breakdown showing what's called the cap cost reductions and the adjusted cap cost price. Now, the adjusted cap cost or capitalization cost is the final selling price of the vehicle. This is the most important number on that document because it subtracts all of the cap cost reductions, which includes the discounts, the rebates, the incentives, and hopefully adds no markup to it. And that gives you the final price. Get this in writing, preferably printed from the manager's computer. But if it's a handwritten thing and they insist that they just need you to sign right there and they'll work out the details later, fine. But you tell him you want this all printed out when you go to the finance manager. So go ahead, agree to it, but don't sign anything official until you've met with the finance manager. Remember that. The actual signing of docs will be in front of the finance manager. If you have gotten this far and the adjusted cap cost looks good, this is now the point where you have to discuss your trade, if you have one. Now, there's no time to go into full detail on this. I need a whole other video to discuss that, but basically show them the comparables of your car, the Blue Book, if you have access to it, the MMR, and list all the options and anything that helps you get the most for your vehicle. Which now leads us to the final phase, purchasing. You noticed I didn't say the financing phase. You already secured the financing for this vehicle earlier with your bank. What you are going to be doing now is a very temporary finance. So even if you're getting ripped off and it looks like it's going to be 15% interest, you really don't care at this point. And even your credit doesn't matter much at this point because they're going to sell you the car and make it happen. They're not going to let you go out just because your credit isn't perfect or stellar. It's also of note that as long as it's been less than 30 days since you were pre-qualified with your credit union or bank and had a credit inquiry done, Credit checks by the dealership are not going to affect your credit earlier. The credit bureaus typically give you a break when applying for multiple car loans within a short period of time, so don't worry about that. So at this point, you're not going to be focused too much on the interest rate or monthly payments. That part really isn't important. You will be refinancing it and paying it off in cash after you take the vehicle home. What is important is that you don't fall for any more add-ons or guilt trips from the finance guy. It's also important that he doesn't change the final numbers of you. Remember, his job is to now make that great deal that you just got become a sour deal without you realizing it. Don't take them up on anything, not even the wheel and tire package or the warranty. Believe me, they're designed to sound good, but will rip you off in the long run 95% of the time. These packages are designed to take your money away and put it right in the dealer's pocket. I can't tell you how many times I've told people, don't do this. But some did it anyway and then regretted it later. The only exception to this is if you're leasing a vehicle and was absolutely dead set on turning it in at the end of the lease. There are some packages that might actually make sense, but this is not what this video is about. So don't take any packages, and you can add on the manufacturer's extended warranty later. If your car gets totaled in a year or two, you've just lost any value in those add-ons anyway. And some of you may say, well, they promised to reimburse you for the prorated portion that you didn't use. Yeah, go try to collect that. You're the 1%er if you actually do. Now, your goal, again, is to get out of the financing office unscathed. Don't pay more for this car than you have to. Another devious tactic that I have seen the finance guy, and they will try this, is more than a few times I've seen them change the numbers at the last second. They will accidentally give you less for your trade, or change the adjusted cap cost, or even reprint the final documents because they made a small mistake. And that's where they change the numbers. They may keep the monthly payment the same, and so you won't notice that the final adjusted cap cost has now changed. So be careful. These guys are not your friends, and many times what they're doing is illegal, and sometimes they do this behind the GM or sales manager's back. Because you sign the dotted line, it supposedly removes their liability, and they just got themselves a nice little bonus on your dime. So be very careful with that. Now, you can work out your own down payment at this point, but my recommendation is to get as close to sign and drive as possible. So you may not even agree to the initial terms that he has printed out and shown you. You can have him throw it all away and tell him, I want to do sign and drive. And this is for a couple of reasons. One is your credit union may require an additional down payment when you go to refi it. You don't want to have to double down on putting down that $5,000 down payment once to the dealer and once to your credit union to satisfy their separate requirements. You also want to reduce as much out of your pocket as possible that you give to the dealer. I have seen on a couple occasions where the finance guy will actually take part of your down payment and apply it to an interest rate adjustment that make the numbers look better, kind of like points on a mortgage, and you don't want that. You're essentially only making one payment on this vehicle through their bank, so a couple hundred lost in the monthly interest isn't going to really be of concern to you. What could actually help you is getting the dealer to cover the first month's payment in a sign and drive. So that's where you don't pay anything up front in exchange for a rip-off rate that they lock you into, because in a few days it won't matter. So what you want to ask for is 0 out of pockets. The verbiage is not no money down. They will twist that into saying, well, no money down doesn't include the $500 dealer fees and this fee and the taxes and the blah, blah, blah. To the dealer, when you say 0 out of pockets, they know that literally means nothing out of your pocket at the time of signing. Now, if you have really bad credit, you may not be able to do this, which is fine. Just ask them for the least out of pockets as possible, as long as it doesn't affect your adjusted cap cost. Remember that. Make that clear. They can jack the interest rate all the way up. You don't care. So once he writes up the final papers, read the fine print of what he's having you sign. Do not sign anything until you have read it thoroughly and have gotten the answers to the following questions. This is important. Does the final adjusted cap cost match the agreed final price with the salesman? Does it include all the incentives you expected? Does your agreed trade match? Are there any last-minute ADMs in the paperwork? Now, it's rare, but this you've got to get answered too. Does the bank impose a penalty for early termination or refi? If any of these questions either come back with the wrong answer or no answer at all, tell the finance guy he's about to blow the deal and you're considering walking out and informing the salesman and the sales manager and the GM that he blew the deal. That usually makes them nervous because the last thing the dealership wants is for the finance guy to torpedo the deal because he's trying to line his pocket. Remember, everyone here gets a commission. But if the finance guy gets greedy and blows the deal, everyone's time was wasted. Don't let him call your bluff. You make him fix it right and inform him he doesn't have any more strikes left. You will get up, leave his office, and do as you just said. If it did come to that, I guarantee you the manager will talk to him and have him fix it and try to save the deal, unless he's an absolute moron. Now, at this point, you've probably been at the dealership for several hours, and the sales guy, he's waiting patiently and for all this to end, and he just wants to lock in his commission and move on to the next guy or gal. If things did happen to go sour along the way and the sales manager or GM doesn't fix it, don't feel bad about getting up and leaving. Move on to the next dealer on the list. They will likely call you the next day anyways and try to salvage the deal. But if it doesn't, don't worry about it. You do this deal on your terms, not theirs. They just wasted half a day or more with you. So unless you're being completely unreasonable, they want that sale back. But again, if it does go south, try to get to the next dealer as quickly as possible, just in case. And do the same steps that you did in this video up to this point. And you're likely to seal the deal on the second or third try. So assuming everything looks good, you've signed the docs, you've got a hard copy of everything. Make sure to get a hard copy of everything. Now that you have the car in your possession, paperwork in hand, go to your bank or credit union as soon as you can and start the process of refinancing that vehicle. You may have to wait for your registration to arrive if the dealer didn't process it on the same day. But make sure that your bank understands that this is still a new vehicle and that you've only had it for a few days. You'll sometimes get a better rate when they consider it a new car. You've now successfully beat the dealer at his own game. Bonuses that the dealer finance department was hoping to get for the rip-off interest rate financing just got flipped on them, and you likely got this car cheaper than most would have. Well, I hope this two-part series is helpful. I put a lot of effort into preparing the outline for this, and I didn't just want to wing it. If you didn't like it, well, don't subscribe. But if you did like it, you know what to do. Let me know how it worked out for you in the comments below as well. But don't knock it until you've tried it. Be respectful in the comments. You may have a better way that worked for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no one foolproof way of doing things, and you may tailor the suggestions I gave to your own location or circumstances. But these suggestions have helped not only myself, but many people I know. I hope to do future videos on leases and used cars and exotics and how to do the same process with them, just a little different. The principles are the same, but there are a few differences, and especially in regards to everything that was discussed in this part 2 video. Happy car hunting. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?